Okay, let's go over the assignment, scaling up fractions and mixed numbers in your world. What this is trying to do is get you to multiply fractions by whole numbers. Scaling up fractions just means more or less you're doing just kind of a ratio comparison, and I'll show you how to do that really quick. Let's read the assignment. Choose two of the three real-world applications of fractions and mixed numbers. Show all your work, including the range from fractions and mixed numbers to improper fractions. The change, excuse me, not range, when needed, and back. Show your calculations and explain how you scaled up the amounts. Okay, and then write your own story problem using mixed numbers that need to be scaled up. The problem should have at least 5 mixed numbers that will be scaled up. Be sure to show all your work, explain your steps and your solution. Okay, now with that, I would just recommend doing another recipe or something to that effect. We have 3 choices. There's choice 1 is a recipe, choice 2 is fabric amounts, and choice 3 looks like we're doing up traveling miles or something like that, distances. I'm going to show you just a couple parts of choice 1 so that you can kind of follow along and see what I'm doing. And then, you try it and see how well you do. This recipe makes 3 dozen cookies. You want to make enough cookies to feed 360 people so that each person gets 2 cookies. How will you scale up the recipe? How much will you need? Okay, well, first you need to look at it and say, okay, that's 360 people and they each get 2 cookies. So 360 times 2 is, and I'm just going to use a calculator to be quick about it, 360 times 2 is 720. So we need to make 720 cookies. With 720 cookies, how many dozen is that? Well, you can do it a couple ways. One, you can figure out how many dozens this 720 is, and by doing that, you just take 720 divided by a dozen, and you get 60. So that makes 60 dozen, okay? Now, another thing you can do is say, all right, well, this makes 3 dozen. So you could say this makes 36 cookies. Either way, you have a ratio. So either 3 and you're going up to 60, or 36 and you're going up to 720, okay? Let's start with 3 going up to 60. Those are easier numbers to work with. So we're starting with 3 dozen, and we need to somehow get all the way up to 60 dozen. Well, to do that, we need to times 20, and that gets us to 60. Okay, 3 times 20 equals 60, and that's what we need, providing we don't burn any cookies in the process, which is always my case, the way I cook them. Okay, so whatever we do, we need to multiply it by 20. Okay, now what we have here is we have fractions. With the fractions, we need to say, okay, we need to somehow figure out how many that is times 20. What I want to do is convert that back into a mixed number. To convert that into a mixed number, you first start off by saying, okay, we have 1 and 1 over 16. To convert to a mixed number, we have to multiply the whole number times the denominator, and that turns into 16, and then add the numerator. Okay, so 1 times 16 is 16, plus 1 is 17 over 16. Okay, now we're trying to multiply it by 20 to get from 3 dozen to 60 dozen. Okay, so I hope you see where I'm getting that 60 dozen. I did that by dividing by 12, and that gave me that. Okay, so 3 dozen to 60 dozen, so I'm multiplying by 20. So I take 1 and 1/16, convert it to 17/16, and then I need to times it by 20. Well, you need fraction times a fraction, so we're going to draw a line and put a 1. That's always how you convert a whole number into a fraction. Just draw a line, put a 1. Now, what is 17 times 20? Well, just use a calculator. 17 times 20 is 340. So we get 340 over, now multiply straight across. 16 times 1 is 16. Okay, so there's the improper fraction. We need to now convert it. Every fraction is a division problem. So 16, oh, excuse me, every fraction is a division problem. So 340 divided by 16 is 21.25. Okay, all I want is the whole number. So I know it's going to be 21 and something over 16ths. Okay, well, what's left? 21 times 16 is what? 336. So 340 minus 336 is 4/16. Okay, but you also notice here is that 0.25. Well, that's the same thing. Isn't that simplified down to 1/4? 4 goes into 4 one time, 4 goes into 16 4 times, and 25 is 1/4. So we now know we need, if we go back up to the problem, we know we need 21 1/4 cups of butter. And that's the answer to that part. Okay. Now, if I go on to the next one, 5/8. What are we multiplying by? We're multiplying by 20. So let's take 5/8 times 20. Remember to draw a line and put a 1. 5 times 20 is 100. 8 times 1 is 8. Now let's turn that back into a mixed number. 100 divided by 8 is 12.5. So we need 12 1/2 cups of sugar. Okay. Now let's keep going. I'll give you a couple more. 1 3/4. We're scaling it up, but in order to scale it, let's convert it all to a mixed number. So we multiply the denominator. 1 times 4 is 4. And then we add the numerator. 4 plus 3 is 7. So that becomes 7/4. Okay, we're multiplying by 20. So 7/4 times 20/1. 7 times 20 is 140. 4 times 1 is 4. 140 divided by 4 is 35 even. So we know we need 35 teaspoons of vanilla. And don't forget this, you got cups of sugar and you got cups of butter, teaspoons of sugar. Okay. Now let's look right here. 1 7/8. 1 7/8. We multiply times the denominator. So 1 times 8 is 8. 8 plus 7 is 15. So 15/8 times, we're timesing by 20 because we're going up to 60 dozens. So times 20/1. 15 times 20 is 300 over 8 times 1. So when you multiply fractions, you just multiply straight across. 8 times 1 is 8. And then divide. 300 divided by 8 is 37.5, which is the same thing as 37 1/2. So 37 1/2. And that's cups of flour. Okay. And then so on. You just keep going down and multiplying every fraction times 20/1 times 20/1 and so on. Okay. Number 2. This fabric list makes one crazy quilt, but you have a group of friends are doing a service project and want to make 300 quilts. Okay, so if that makes one quilt and you are trying to make 300 quilts, well, what you need to do is convert or multiply to get from 1 to 300. So how do you get from 1 to 300? Well, 1 times 300 equals 300. Okay, you're going from 1 to 300, and you just got to figure out what math you do to get there. If you don't know, just divide it. 300 divided by 1. 60 divided by 3, and you'll get 20. Okay, so that means all of these fractions you got to convert to mixed numbers. So, I'll show you the first one. 5 times 16 equals 80. Remember, we're doing the 5 and 3 over 16. We're doing 5 times the denominator, so that's 80. 80 plus 3 is 83. So that gives us 83 over 16. Okay, with 83 over 16, now we're timesing by 300 over 1. Just draw a line, put a 1 under any whole numbers. Now multiply. 83 times 300 is 24,900 over 16, and I'm getting that by 16 times 1. Okay, now we need to divide that. Divided by 16, that gives us 1,556 and 1/4, or 0.25. So 1,556 and 1/4, and what is that? Yards. Okay, and so that would be the answer here. And that's how you got to do it. Just piece by piece, multiply, get every number from a mixed number to an improper fraction, just like this, multiply by the denominator, add to the numerator, then you get a mixed number, multiply it by whatever scale you got to increase it. So up here in the cookies, we were increasing it 20 times to get to 60. The quilts were increasing it 300 times to get to 300, and so on. And then just multiply and then divide out, and that'll get you back to where you're mixed number. So here, these are round trip distances for each month. Calculate the total distance in miles that the route travels in 1 year. Well, each month it travels that far. So that means in 1 year, it's going to be that times how many months. Okay, and then you just convert and then solve, and then write your own problem that needs to be scaled up. So I hope this helps. Let me know if it doesn't, and we'll do another video to fill you in a little better on what's needed.